200 opinions. It's my 200th episode of Sabrock's Opinions. And it's not special. It's not special in any way. We're not doing anything extra. We are talking about non-player characters, how to use them well, and more specifically, how to not use them well. I was just having a conversation today on my Discord server about how Brennan Lee Mulligan uses NPCs in a really good way, and how I've sort of adapted his style of creating this cast of supporting characters for the heroes, the protagonists, to create a really positive, heartwarming situation. And to be honest, I'm almost positive I've said this in a previous episode. Brennan Lee Mulligan fucking breaks me. His stories are so heartwarming. His characters are so lovable. I can't get enough of it. And I can't do characters that well. I just can't. I can't compete with him in that regard. But I can do what I can. And I can take some lessons from having observed media where he is running games. And I have done so in the last few years. I've absorbed a lot of Dimension 20 content. I've been listening to the Worlds Beyond Number podcast. And the lessons that I am learning are things that I really wish I had known when I got started running D&D. I think it would have dramatically improved my not only my experience, my performance, but also the experience of my players. So what you don't want to do is have every NPC, and we're not counting like, shopkeepers who are just there to sell the players items or that sort of thing, like characters that are integral to the plot. Like, these are supporting characters that are going to convey information, characters that are going to motivate the party in various ways. What you don't want to do is have them all slot into into not antagonistic. That's not the right word. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. You've got characters that are like damsels in distress. They're going to get kidnapped and they have to go be rescued, or they are the fridged girlfriend from it's not Deadpool, it's Punisher. I think it's Punisher where they did that. The NPCs whose only job is to be killed by the villain so that the players hate the villain even more. Or even worse, the helpful, friendly NPC who's been with the party since the beginning and then reveals themselves to be the villain after all. All of these are antagonistic. They are negative motivations. You introduce a character that the party likes, and so trouble has to happen to them to motivate the party. That is, I think, a relatively naive way of constructing a story and motivating the characters. In particular, because if you do it, maybe even once, but particularly if you do it more than once, the players are going to catch on, and they're going to realize any NPC that we get close to is going to be fodder and is going to be in danger, and it might just straight up end up getting killed. So we're not going to be friends with anybody. We're going to keep our distance emotionally, and we are not going to make connections with the NPCs. And that's a problem. That is a problem that you have then created because you're training your players what to expect based on what you do. So having NPCs get into trouble, need to be rescued, or straight up being killed should be done much less frequently than I think it is. I think it's a trap for new DMs to think that they have to put friends, allies, family in danger directly in order to motivate the BCs on a regular basis. I think that's a mistake. It's kind of what creates this situation where nearly every D&D character has no family, no friends, they're a complete loner. They don't have any connections to the world around them because the player, consciously or unconsciously, knows that any connections that they give are ways for the DM to strike at them, to make their lives harder. Now, some players will defy this expectation. They're like, okay, let me create a bunch of hooks for the DM to grab onto and work my character in. I'm down for it. But either way, there is a certain assumed, there's an expectation that the DM is going to use any part of your backstory that you give them to adversely affect your character, or to motivate them to stop a bad thing from happening. And even worse, I think it should be even more scarcely, should be used the villain reveal, where a trusted NPC turns out to have been a bad guy the whole time. If that happens even once per campaign, if you're averaging 1-to-1 on how frequently in a campaign that happens, that's too much. It needs to be even rarer than that, I think, because again, you are especially if you're running multiple campaigns sequentially with the same group, you're training your players, and they're going to start looking for, okay, that NPC is too loyal, they're too powerful, they're too convenient. That's the bad guy. They're going to figure it out ahead of time. It's not going to be as dramatic as you think. And that is even besides the part where it is sort of a contrived plot point. Like, let's be honest, it's really, really hard to do it well in the first place, much less multiple times. I would actually, okay, so I'm gonna say this. Everyone gets one. Every GM gets one villain reveal, where an NPC that's been a friend and an ally, maybe even a quest giver the whole time, at the end reveals themselves to be the big bad. You can do that once, ever. You're never allowed to do it again. That's my rule. So stop it. Anyways, these kinds of tropes have created an environment in the D&D community where it's expected. It's so common that it's expected. And I think there's a tremendous amount of effort that needs to be put in to break these expectations, and create characters that are competent, friendly, protected, and helpful. Like, they are purely positive characters, entirely a positive influence in the players' lives, or the characters' lives. Which is not to say that, like, these are allies, or I mean, they probably should be allies. You would count them as allies, but not to say that that they are only there. Like there needs to be a role in the story that is beyond just, oh, this character is here to help you, so they're going to come along with you and constantly help you with no regard for anything else. Like, characters need to have their own motivations. Maybe they are loyal to another faction, and that faction's interests align with the player characters, and so they are going to be helpful. But at the end of the day, if they have to choose between what the PCs are doing and what their own faction is about, they're going to choose their own faction. Whether it be like a cabal of wizards, or, a royal army or something like that. Like, they have obligations and desires and motivations that are outside of the player characters, but their interests and their goals align with the players, so that they are an ally on pretty much everything. There may be some disagreements at some point. There may be some element of mistrust, though I think that even that should be just kept to a minimum. But yeah, like, being consistent with it, like, so I'm listening to Worlds Beyond Number, and there's a character, I don't want to say a name for fear of spoilers. There's a character that I was suspicious of at very early on, because, like, again, I've been steeped in this community, the D&D culture, where these kinds of NPCs are suspicious. And I have since given up that suspicion, because this character has been so wholesome, so consistently helpful, right a lot. Not always. They are fallible, but they are right a lot. And, like, it has been demonstrated to me that, no, this is a legit character. They're a legit ally. They're a friend. They're a force for the party, situationally. But they're going to be very forthright about when their interests no longer align with the party. They're going to tell them. They're going to be upfront about it. And I think that's really a good part of making good NPCs, is having the NPCs be open and honest with the players or the player characters, is saying, like, I would love to help you. I want to help you, but I can't because reason. And maybe that can be worked out. Maybe that reason can be removed. It's an option for, depending on how your campaign is structured, that could be an option. But I think having like friends, family, allies, this supporting cast of characters that is not automatically always in danger. Like, they can be left behind and sort of be assumed to be fine on their own because they've been fine this entire time. Nothing about knowing an adventurer. Oh, that's not true, actually. Knowing an adventurer can inherently increase the risk of your life. That is reasonable. But like, for the say contrivance of the story, that they remain safe and secure, someone that the players can fall back on. If you take away all of a player character's connections to the world around them, all their friends, all their family, if you're constantly threatening them or straight up removing them, they are now no longer connected to your world, and they're going to be less invested in your story, and they're going to resist future connections. That is natural human behavior. That'll happen. So don't do that. Because you want your characters to be invested in the world, invested in the characters around them. You want them to have that sort of emotional attachment and to be able to engage with NPCs. If once they have become detached like that, they're going to be engaged. They're going to engage with future NPCs less, not just like to create emotional attachments, but like they're going to be suspicious of and resistant to listening to any NPC in the future. So if you want to have those cool roleplay moments, the moments of story where, they are being conveyed information or being convinced to do something, all of these are made easier when the players think, not even when the players believe that connections are safe, when connections are possible. So, I think that a lot of new DMs don't really get that. They think that NPCs are there either to oppose the party or to serve as tools for the party to rescue or to motivate the party to vengeance, or those are the broad categories. I'm sure there's other like NPC tropes that are problematic in similar ways. I wish I, as a new DM, had known about this part of human psychology, and I could have thought about it a bit ahead of time, because I did this a lot. I did where like every non-player character had a relevance to the plot, and it was almost entirely focused around like motivating the characters to be more angry. I think there should be like at least like 80%, 20%, and 80% is characters that make the players happy. 20% make the characters, angry, defensive, whatever, just to keep them on toes, because you gotta have conflict. I'm not saying get rid of conflict, but I'm saying that make the NPCs that are there to create conflict or to facilitate conflict, make it very obvious. Don't be afraid to have villains be like villains. Like, this is a shady guy. He's clearly acting badly. No one likes him. Oh, he's a bad guy to the surprise of nobody. That's fine. That should be the norm. And I think it takes a subtler, more nuanced hand to create the kinds of like villains and antagonists that don't at first appear to be villains or antagonists. I try to telegraph that kind of stuff pretty hard most of the time. Those are my thoughts on NPCs and how they can contribute positively or negatively to the party.